The galaxy had long known of Earth, a blue planet nestled in a corner of the Milky Way. Its inhabitants were seen as primitive, insignificant beings, barely able to reach their own moon. To the advanced civilizations of the galaxy, humanity was a curiosity at best, something to watch from afar, but never something to fear. But that was before the discovery of the dark secret buried deep within Earth's history, a secret that, once uncovered, sent tremors through every corner of the galaxy. The story began when a mysterious signal, coming from deep within Earth's most remote corners, was intercepted by the Federation of Allied Planets. It was a low-frequency transmission, a pulse that repeated in an oddly patterned rhythm, unlike anything they had encountered before. At first, it was assumed to be some sort of anomaly, a glitch in the system. However, after further analysis, the signal was confirmed to be coming from Earth itself. This discovery raised many questions, especially when it was learned that the signal had been broadcasting for centuries, long before humanity even realized it was there. The Federation sent an expedition to Earth to investigate, a team of elite scientists, engineers, and diplomats. They were led by Commander Thaler, a seasoned veteran of the Federation's intergalactic explorations. Upon their arrival, they found that Earth's inhabitants were blissfully unaware of the signal. The planet, still in its primitive stage, had not advanced enough to understand the technology hidden beneath its surface. The team set up their base in the Arctic, where the signal appeared to be originating. As they dug deeper into the ice, they discovered a massive structure buried under miles of frozen land. It was unlike anything they had ever seen before, a vast, ancient network of tunnels, chambers, and machinery that seemed to pulse with life. The structure was made of a material that didn't match any known alloys, and its design was far beyond the capabilities of any civilization known to the galaxy. The deeper the team ventured into the structure, the more they realized that this was not a mere relic of an ancient race. It was a weapon of unimaginable power. The technology within the structure was still active, and it seemed to be linked to the very fabric of spacetime itself. It was as though the weapon had been waiting, dormant for eons, for someone to awaken it. The Federation scientists speculated that this was no ordinary weapon, it was a doomsday device capable of wiping out entire star systems. The discovery sent shockwaves through the Federation. News of the weapon spread quickly, and soon, representatives from every major civilization in the galaxy were vying for control of Earth. There were rumors that the weapon could alter the fabric of reality, that it could even destroy the galaxy itself if activated. Every faction wanted a piece of this newfound power, but Earth, the very cradle of humanity, remained a mystery. Commander Thaler and his team were tasked with learning more about the weapon, but as they delved deeper into the structure, they uncovered disturbing clues about its origins. The weapon was not built by an ancient, long-lost civilization. It had been constructed by humans, by their distant ancestors. The shocking revelation was that Earth was not the humble, primitive world it seemed to be. It had once been the center of a highly advanced civilization, one that had harnessed the power of the stars themselves. The Federation's historians and scientists were left in disbelief. The humans of Earth had been among the greatest technological minds in the galaxy, their knowledge and achievements far surpassing anything the galaxy had ever known. But something had happened. Something catastrophic. The civilization that had once thrived on Earth had vanished, leaving only remnants of their power. And in the process, they had created a weapon so powerful that it had been sealed away, hidden from the galaxy for millennia. The implications of this discovery were staggering. If the weapon was activated, it could bring about the end of everything. The Federation's council debated fiercely, torn between the desire to study the weapon and the fear of what would happen if it fell into the wrong hands. Earth's population, oblivious to the secrets hidden beneath their feet, continued with their everyday lives, unaware that their world held the key to the galaxy's fate. But there was one thing the Federation didn't know, something that would change everything. Earth's long-forgotten creators, the ancient humans who had built the weapon, had left behind a final message. It was encoded into the very core of the weapon, waiting to be discovered. A message that would reveal not only the true purpose of the weapon but also the dark reason why the ancient civilization had vanished from the galaxy altogether. The Federation was about to uncover a truth so terrifying, so beyond comprehension, that it would shake the foundations of the galaxy to its core. What had been hidden for centuries would soon come to light, and the galaxy would never be the same again. As the Federation team continued to explore the ancient structure beneath the icy expanse of the Arctic, Commander Thaler grew more concerned. The deeper they ventured into the labyrinthine corridors, the more oppressive the air became. A strange hum reverberated through the walls, and the faint glow from the alien machinery seemed to pulse with an unsettling rhythm, almost as if the structure was alive, watching them. Each new chamber they entered was more bizarre and terrifying than the last, filled with unfamiliar technology, symbols, and holographic projections that defied their understanding. The weapon itself was a sight to behold. It was massive. An enormous central chamber held a device unlike anything the Federation had ever seen. Suspended in the middle of the room was a spherical object, encased in a field of shimmering energy, constantly shifting in patterns that defied logic. Around it, intricate mechanisms spun and rotated, as if the weapon was waiting for a signal or a command. The sheer power emanating from it was overwhelming, yet no one could determine how to deactivate it or even understand its true function. What disturbed Thaler most was the fact that the weapon was designed to be activated by a human, a person from Earth. The structures and symbols etched into the walls suggested that the ancient creators of this technology had intended it to be controlled by their descendants, not by alien beings. It was a chilling realization. Earth's ancient civilization had not only been advanced beyond belief, but they had also engineered a weapon specifically for their own kind, to be used when the time came. Thaler and his team had been sent to understand the weapon, but now, they were beginning to realize that the true danger lay not in the weapon's power, but in the legacy it represented. The Earthlings had been capable of unimaginable feats, of manipulating spacetime itself, yet they had vanished, utterly wiped out, with no clear reason why. As they continued to examine the room, a low-frequency signal suddenly emanated from the central sphere. It was the same pulse they had detected from the surface, but now, it had become louder, more urgent. The signal was no longer just a background noise, it was calling to them, almost as if it recognized their presence. The Federation scientists scrambled to decipher the signal, attempting to make sense of the complex patterns that seemed to be encoded within the transmission. After hours of work, they made a breakthrough. The signal was not merely a broadcast, it was a message, a warning. It was an ancient recording, somehow preserved in the very heart of the weapon. The message, once decoded, was in the language of Earth's long-lost ancestors, a language no one had spoken for thousands of years. The Federation linguists worked quickly, their excitement palpable as they pieced together the translation. The message was chilling. It spoke of an event, an apocalypse, that had wiped out Earth's ancient civilization. The creators of the weapon had known that their civilization was on the brink of collapse, that their power would soon be their downfall. In their hubris, they had constructed the weapon, not as a means of defense, but as a tool for absolute control. They had planned to use it to reshape the galaxy in their image, to extend their dominion over the stars. But something went terribly wrong. The message detailed a catastrophic event known as the breaking, a moment when the weapon, designed to manipulate spacetime, had become unstable. The weapon's power had torn through the fabric of reality itself, creating fractures in the very structure of the universe. Entire star systems had been swallowed by black holes, galaxies had been distorted beyond recognition, and countless civilizations had been obliterated in an instant. The destruction was so immense that it had caused the downfall of Earth's creators, and the weapon had been sealed away in a desperate attempt to prevent further calamity. But there was something even more terrifying in the message. The weapon had not only destroyed the ancient civilization, it had also triggered a chain reaction that affected the fabric of time itself. The message hinted at a hidden truth: Earth's creators had not simply vanished, they had been erased from existence. No record of their civilization remained in the galaxy, not even their memories. It was as though they had never existed at all. As the team absorbed the magnitude of what they had uncovered, an unsettling thought began to form in Thaler's mind. If Earth's creators had been erased, then who, or what, was left behind? What had been left to inherit this weapon of unimaginable power? And more importantly, why had Earth's descendants never known the truth of their origins? The Federation scientists worked feverishly to gather more data, but Thaler felt a growing unease. Something wasn't right. The weapon, once thought to be a relic of a long-dead race, was more than that. it was a link to a dark, forgotten past, one that threatened to rise again. As the days passed, Thaler began to suspect that the weapon might not just be a tool of destruction, it might be a living entity, one that had been waiting for the right moment to awaken. And that moment might be now. As the days passed, tension began to mount within the Federation team. Commander Thaler felt it more than anyone. The deeper they explored the structure, the more they sensed an eerie presence within the walls, something intangible yet palpable, as if the very air around them had become charged with an unseen force. The weapon, dormant for so long, was beginning to stir. It was as though it could sense their presence, as though it was aware that it was being studied, being probed for secrets it had kept hidden for millennia. The Federation scientists worked tirelessly to understand the mechanics of the weapon, but progress was slow. The structure's technology was beyond anything they had ever encountered. Attempts to deactivate the weapon or even shut down its power source had failed. Every time they thought they had made progress, the energy field around the sphere would strengthen, preventing any further attempts at interference. Meanwhile, reports from the surface of Earth started to trickle in. Local governments and the people of Earth had begun to notice strange phenomena. Sudden, unexplained shifts in weather patterns, unusual seismic activity, and strange lights appearing in the skies. It seemed as though the weapon's activation was not only affecting the immediate area around the structure, but was beginning to ripple outward, disturbing the planet's natural balance. Commander Thaler had hoped that their efforts could remain secret, that the rest of the galaxy would remain unaware of the weapon's true potential until they had a full understanding of its purpose. But as the strange occurrences intensified, it became clear that Earth could not remain isolated for long. Rumors began to spread, and soon, factions from across the galaxy began to take an interest in the planet. The Federation, though unified in its desire to prevent another catastrophe, found itself fractured. There were those who believed that the weapon should be destroyed, that no civilization should have access to such a destructive force. Others, more ambitious, saw the weapon as a potential tool for dominance, something that could give them control over the galaxy itself. But most alarming of all were those who believed that the weapon could be used to undo the damage of the past, to rewrite history and bring back the ancient civilization that had created it. Thaler had spent years in the Federation's service, witnessing countless political struggles and debates over power. Yet this was different. This wasn't just a struggle for control, it was a fight for the very future of the galaxy. The stakes were higher than anyone had realized, and the true danger of the weapon was only just beginning to reveal itself. Then, as if in response to the growing tensions, the weapon activated once more. This time, it was different. Instead of a faint hum or a minor shift in energy, the sphere pulsed with a blinding light, and a deep, resonant sound filled the chamber. The ground shook beneath their feet, and the walls of the structure seemed to distort and ripple, as if reality itself was bending under the pressure of the weapon's power. The Federation scientists quickly scrambled to stabilize their equipment, but it was clear that the situation was spiraling out of control. Thaler watched in stunned silence as the structure began to collapse in on itself, massive chunks of rock and metal falling from above as though the very foundation of the place was disintegrating. The once stable chambers were now in chaos, and the strange energy pulses from the weapon grew more erratic by the second. The team's only hope was to escape the structure and return to the surface, but as they made their way through the crumbling halls, they discovered something that sent a chill through their spines. The corridors that had once seemed so familiar now appeared alien, as if the walls themselves had changed. The symbols on the walls were no longer static but seemed to shift and move, as though they were alive, responding to the presence of the intruders. They finally made it to the central chamber, but what they found there was more horrifying than anything they could have imagined. The weapon, still encased in its shimmering energy field, was no longer simply a machine, it was alive. Its spherical core had expanded, revealing a complex network of tendrils, like some kind of massive neural network. It pulsed and writhed, sending out waves of energy that distorted the space around it. It was clear now that the weapon was not a simple instrument of war. It was something far more dangerous, something that had been designed to manipulate the very essence of the universe itself. As the team watched, horrified, the weapon's power seemed to intensify, as if it was drawing strength from the very fabric of reality. And then, just as suddenly as it had begun, the weapon ceased. The light dimmed, the hum faded, and the tremor stopped. For a moment, the Federation team stood in stunned silence, unsure of what had just transpired. Commander Thaler was the first to speak, his voice filled with grim determination. "We need to leave. Now. This place is no longer stable." But as they turned to make their way back to the surface, a final revelation struck them all. Embedded within the chaotic transmission from the weapon was a message, one that had been waiting for them all along. It was a single phrase, repeated over and over again, as though it had been encoded into the very core of the weapon's design. "The time has come." The meaning was clear. Whatever had been set in motion was no longer under anyone's control. Earth's dark secret had been awakened, and the galaxy was about to face the consequences. Thaler's worst fears were coming true. The weapon was no longer a relic of the past. It was a living force, and it had begun to reclaim its place in the universe. The Federation team made their way back to the surface of Earth, their minds racing with the terrifying implications of what they had just witnessed. Commander Thaler's instincts told him that this was far from over. The weapon was not just some dormant relic, it was an active force, one that had been waiting for the right moment to make its presence known. And now, that moment had arrived. As they emerged from the icy expanse, the sky above Earth seemed to have changed. The once clear blue had turned an unsettling shade of red, as though some unseen hand had shifted the balance of nature itself. Strange storms raged in the distance, swirling with an unnatural fury. The planet was reacting, as if it was coming to life, or perhaps, waking from a long slumber. The Federation base, established to monitor the situation, was in chaos. Scientists and diplomats scrambled to understand what had happened below the surface, but the true extent of the crisis was still unclear. There was one thing that was certain, however: Earth was no longer the planet they had known. Something ancient, something powerful, had been awakened. And the galaxy was on the verge of discovering exactly what it meant. As Commander Thaler and his team made their way back to the command center, they were met with a flurry of activity. The Federation had begun to mobilize, sending out emergency communications to every corner of the galaxy. They had to prepare for the worst. But what was the worst? Was the weapon a threat to the galaxy, or was it something more, something that had the potential to change the entire fabric of existence? The message, "The time has come," echoed in Thaler's mind. What did it mean? Was it a call to arms? A warning? Or perhaps a signal for something far greater, a force beyond even the Federation's comprehension? It wasn't long before the answer began to reveal itself. The strange phenomena that had started with the activation of the weapon continued to escalate. Earth's once stable weather systems became increasingly erratic. Unprecedented natural disasters began to strike, entire continents trembling under the pressure of unseen forces. The planet's very core seemed to be shifting, as though some massive, unseen mechanism was turning within. Reports from the surface indicated that strange energy signatures were spreading across Earth's atmosphere, affecting everything from communication satellites to human technology. Devices malfunctioned at random, and entire cities lost power for days on end. The Federation's engineers and scientists scrambled to stabilize the planet's systems, but it was clear that Earth was rapidly descending into chaos. Then came the first sign of something more ominous. A massive energy pulse erupted from the Arctic, where the weapon's structure had been located. It wasn't just a localized event, it sent ripples through the entire solar system. The Federation's sensors detected massive fluctuations in spacetime, as if the very fabric of the universe was being distorted. The pulse caused brief, flickering distortions in the space around Earth, warping light and pulling objects out of their normal trajectory. The Federation's fleet, stationed in orbit around Earth, was on high alert. Ships drifted in and out of phase, their positions shifting unpredictably as though the fabric of space itself was being torn apart. Entire fleets reported strange distortions, as if reality itself was being rewritten. It was at this point that the Federation realized the full extent of the weapon's power. The ancient civilization that had built it had not only constructed a weapon capable of destruction, they had created something that could manipulate the very forces of the universe itself. Time and space were no longer stable. The very laws that governed existence were beginning to break down. The Council of the Federation convened in an emergency session, each member facing a decision they had never imagined. It was no longer a question of whether to control the weapon, it was a question of how to stop it before the entire galaxy was consumed. They had no idea what they were dealing with. The weapon was far beyond any technology they had ever encountered, and it was becoming increasingly clear that its creators had built it not just for war, but for a purpose they could no longer comprehend. In the midst of this chaos, a second, even more unsettling event occurred. A fleet of ships, previously thought to be lost in the far reaches of the galaxy, emerged from the shadows. These ships, massive and imposing, bore no insignia of any known race. Their technology was unlike anything the Federation had ever encountered, and their ships seemed to resonate with the same strange energy that emanated from Earth's weapon. They called themselves the Custodians. The Custodians claimed to be the descendants of the ancient civilization that had created the weapon, the very civilization that had vanished from the galaxy millennia ago. They had watched Earth from the shadows, monitoring its evolution, waiting for the day when the weapon would once again awaken. And now, that day had come. The Custodians revealed the true purpose of the weapon. It was not merely a tool of destruction, it was a key to unlocking the next stage of evolution for all sentient beings. The weapon had been designed to reshape the universe, to elevate the consciousness of every living creature, to transcend the limitations of time and space. But there was a catch: the weapon could only be activated by those with the right understanding of its purpose, the right knowledge to wield its power. And there was one more revelation. The Custodians had not only created the weapon, they had ensured that Earth would be the final battleground. The weapon was not just a weapon. It was a test, a trial to determine who would inherit the mantle of the galaxy's true rulers. The galaxy had underestimated Earth. Humanity had always been seen as insignificant, a race with potential, but no true power. But now, the galaxy was about to learn that humanity was more than it appeared. Earth's dark secret was not just a relic of the past, it was the key to the future, and humanity was poised to play a role in shaping the galaxy's destiny. The time had come. As the Custodians' fleet entered Earth's orbit, their ships shimmered with an otherworldly glow. Their massive, angular forms hovered ominously above the planet, exuding an aura of unshakable authority. The Custodians, who had remained hidden for eons, were now making their presence known. They were not mere survivors of a lost civilization, they were the architects of humanity's fate. Their arrival sparked a new wave of panic and uncertainty within the Federation, for they knew now that Earth was not only at the center of an ancient mystery but also at the heart of a new conflict that would shape the future of the galaxy. Commander Thaler stood in the Federation's command center, staring at the display of the Custodians' fleet. His mind raced with questions. How had they survived for so long? And why had they returned now? The message, "The time has come," began to make a disturbing kind of sense. This was not just a call to activate the weapon, it was a summons to humanity itself. The Custodians had come to ensure that Earth's inhabitants would take their rightful place in the galaxy. The Federation had learned of the Custodians' true nature during an encrypted transmission that had been intercepted from their ships. The message, broadcast across the galaxy, revealed a stunning truth: the Custodians had not merely been observing Earth, they had been guiding humanity's development from the shadows. Throughout history, they had nudged humanity toward its potential, subtly influencing events, ensuring that Earth's civilization would reach a point where it could inherit the ancient power that lay dormant beneath its surface. The Custodians claimed that the weapon, the one buried beneath the Arctic ice, was not merely a destructive force but a device designed to unlock the next stage of evolution. For humanity to ascend, it needed to prove itself worthy of wielding the weapon. The trials were already underway, though humanity was unaware of them. Earth's recent chaos, the storms, the strange energy pulses, the distortions in space-time, were the early signs of the trials. And the Federation had become an unintended participant. The Custodians revealed their offer: if humanity embraced its legacy, if it accepted the weapon and its power, Earth could become the new center of the galaxy. The Custodians would guide humanity to become the next great civilization, one that would reshape the universe and transcend the boundaries of time and space itself. But those who resisted, those who saw the weapon as a threat rather than a gift, would face obliteration. The Custodians had no tolerance for weakness or hesitation. The Federation, horrified by the revelation, understood the stakes more clearly than ever. The galaxy could not allow the Custodians to take control of Earth. The potential for disaster was too great. If humanity fell under their influence, the galaxy would be reshaped in ways that could not be predicted, and not all of it for the better. The power of the weapon was beyond even the Custodians' control, and there was no telling what might happen if it fell into the wrong hands, or if Earth's people were unable to wield it properly. Commander Thaler knew that Earth's fate lay in the hands of its inhabitants. The Federation could not force humanity to accept the Custodians' offer. But neither could it stand by and let the galaxy's future be decided by a race that had already proven its ruthlessness. As the Custodians prepared to make contact with Earth's leaders, the Federation scrambled to form a plan. They would need to find a way to ensure that humanity was not manipulated by the Custodians, that they would not become pawns in a game that had been set into motion long before their birth. The only chance for humanity was to discover the weapon's true purpose and control it, before the Custodians could claim it for themselves. Meanwhile, the world of Earth's governments, still reeling from the strange occurrences that had plagued the planet, was thrown into turmoil. Earth's leaders, unaware of the full extent of the situation, now had to grapple with the knowledge that their planet was the key to the galaxy's fate. The Custodians offered them an impossible choice: accept their guidance and ascend to become the most powerful civilization in the galaxy, or reject them and risk annihilation. Humanity's response was not unified. Some saw the Custodians' offer as a blessing, a chance to take their place among the stars, to wield power beyond their wildest dreams. Others, including Earth's more skeptical leaders, viewed the Custodians as a threat. They could not trust a race that had remained hidden for so long and manipulated humanity's history from the shadows. The weapon was too dangerous to be left in the hands of anyone, let alone a group that had no interest in the well-being of the galaxy at large. Commander Thaler, aware of the impending crisis, knew that time was running out. The Federation's fleet remained in orbit, ready to take action if necessary, but they were powerless against the Custodians' superior technology. Earth's leaders had to make a decision, and they had to make it quickly. In the quiet moments before the Custodians made their move, Thaler gathered his team. They had seen the weapon's power up close, and they understood the gravity of what was at stake. The time had come for humanity to take control of its destiny. The weapon, Thaler said, his voice steady but laced with concern, is the key to everything. We can't let the Custodians decide our future for us. If we want to survive, we need to find a way to unlock the weapon's full potential. We can't let them use it for their own purposes. The team nodded in agreement, each of them understanding that Earth's future rested on their shoulders. The galaxy had underestimated humanity, and now, it was time for humanity to prove that it was more than just an experiment. It was time to take control of the weapon, and the galaxy itself. The tension in the Federation Command Center was palpable as Commander Thaler and his team prepared for the most critical operation of their lives. The Custodians had made their move, and Earth's leaders were now caught in a web of cosmic intrigue. The weapon beneath the surface of Earth was not just an ancient tool of war, it was a key that could unlock the very forces of creation and destruction. If the Custodians had their way, they would rewrite the galaxy in their image, and humanity would either rise to become its rulers or be erased in the process. But humanity had something that the Custodians did not account for: its unpredictability. Thaler believed that if the weapon could be activated in the right way, it could be wielded by humanity, not as a tool for domination, but as a force of change. A force that could reshape the galaxy on its own terms, free from the influence of the Custodians. The Federation had been caught off guard, but now they were learning to adapt, to think like humans. As the Custodians continued their efforts to convince Earth's leaders to accept their offer, the Federation made their move. They had gathered a small, elite team of scientists, engineers, and military experts. Their mission was simple: find a way to understand the weapon's true purpose before the Custodians could force Earth's people into a decision they might regret. Thaler's team descended once again into the Arctic region, this time under the cover of Federation cloaking technology. They knew the Custodians would be watching, but they also knew that if they could reach the weapon before it was too late, they could turn the tide of the entire conflict. The pressure was mounting, both from within the Federation and from the impending threat of the Custodians, whose patience was running thin. As they approached the weapon's structure, Thaler's heart raced. The air was colder than he had ever felt it, a biting chill that seemed to seep into his bones. The once stable structure had been radically altered. Where it had once been a complex, seemingly intact edifice, it now appeared as though the very fabric of reality was shifting. The walls shimmered with a strange energy, and there was a low hum vibrating through the ground, a constant reminder that the weapon was not merely a relic, it was a living entity, waiting for something. The Federation team entered the heart of the structure, where the weapon's core still pulsed with energy. The room was larger than before, and the spherical core had expanded, its tendrils intertwining, forming complex geometric patterns that seemed to defy the laws of physics. Thaler knew they had to get closer to understand how it worked. "Keep your distance from the core," one of the scientists, Dr. Rena, warned. She had spent months studying the weapon's energy signatures, and she knew how volatile it could become. "We don't know what could happen if we disturb it." Thaler nodded, his mind racing. "We have no choice. The Custodians are already in orbit. If we don't unlock this weapon's secrets, Earth will be forced to make a decision that could either lead to its destruction or its ascension under their control. We need to find the key to activating it, before they do." They approached the core cautiously, using specialized tools to scan its energy readings. As they drew closer, a strange sensation washed over them, a pressure in the air, like gravity itself had become uneven. Dr. Rena's scanner began to beep erratically, and her face paled as the readings grew more intense. "Something's happening," she murmured. "The weapon, it's reacting to us." Without warning, the entire chamber began to tremble. The tendrils of the weapon shot out like lightning, their energy fluctuating wildly. The team scrambled to stabilize their equipment, but it was clear that they had triggered something they didn't fully understand. Suddenly, the weapon released a burst of energy that sent them all crashing to the ground. The walls of the structure warped, distorting space and time in ways that made Thaler feel as though he were being pulled in every direction. His vision blurred, and for a moment, everything around him seemed to freeze. The weapon was not just a tool of power, it was something far more complex, far more dangerous. It was a conduit, a bridge between dimensions, capable of manipulating the very fabric of the universe. Then, as suddenly as it had started, the chaos ceased. The weapon's energy dissipated, leaving the team in stunned silence. Thaler rose to his feet, feeling the weight of what they had just experienced. "It's alive," Dr. Rena whispered, her voice filled with awe. "The weapon, it's not just a machine. It's sentient." Thaler's mind raced. What did this mean for Earth? What did it mean for humanity's future? The Custodians had claimed that the weapon was a key to ascension, but if it was sentient, it might have its own agenda, one that didn't align with the Custodians' plans. The Federation team had discovered something crucial. The weapon had not been designed to be controlled, it had been designed to choose. It had its own will, its own desires, and it was waiting for humanity to make its move. The Custodians had assumed that they could manipulate humanity into using the weapon as a tool for domination. But what if humanity's path was different? What if the weapon's sentience was meant to be an ally, not a weapon to be wielded? Thaler's team quickly realized that the fate of the galaxy rested not on defeating the Custodians or using the weapon for power. It rested on understanding the weapon's true purpose, and on humanity learning to trust itself, to trust its instincts, and to shape its own destiny. As Thaler stood before the weapon, the hum of its energy pulsing in the air, he made a silent vow. The time had come. Humanity would no longer be a pawn. It would become the architect of its own future. The galaxy would learn that Earth was not just a backwater planet, it was the key to the future, and its people were ready to unlock it. And so, with the weapon's energy still reverberating in the air, Commander Thaler and his team prepared to return to the surface, carrying with them the most important discovery of all: the weapon was not a threat, it was a challenge. And humanity would rise to meet it. As the Federation team made their way back to the surface, the weight of their discovery settled on them like a heavy cloak. The weapon beneath the ice was not just a relic of an ancient civilization, it was a sentient being, a force that had the potential to reshape not only Earth's future but the future of the entire galaxy. The Custodians, with all their power and knowledge, had misjudged humanity. They had assumed that the weapon would be controlled, that humanity would bow to their guidance, but the weapon had its own will, its own plans. Commander Thaler's mind raced as he considered the implications. The Custodians, despite their superiority, had been blind to one critical truth: humanity was not a passive participant in the galaxy's grand scheme. Earth was not a backwater planet to be ignored or manipulated. The weapon was not a tool to be used by any one race, it was a challenge, one that only humanity had the potential to meet. Thaler returned to the Federation base with his team, where an emergency council meeting was already underway. News of the weapon's sentience had spread like wildfire, and the galaxy was now watching, waiting to see how Earth would respond. The Custodians were prepared to offer humanity a place at their side, but the Federation knew that accepting their offer would mean relinquishing control of Earth's destiny. Earth could not afford to fall into the hands of a race that had manipulated its history for so long. The Council was divided. Some advocated for a diplomatic approach, urging humanity to join forces with the Custodians. They argued that the Custodians offered unparalleled knowledge and the power to elevate humanity to the stars. But others, including Commander Thaler, knew that Earth's future had to be shaped on its own terms. Humanity had to control its own destiny, without interference from the Custodians or any other race. "We've been given a gift, a challenge," Thaler said, his voice firm. "The weapon is not a threat to us. It's a test. If we can learn to wield it, we can become the architects of the galaxy's future. But we cannot do that if we surrender control to the Custodians. We cannot let them decide who we become." The Council listened in silence, the weight of his words sinking in. They knew what was at stake. This was not just about Earth, it was about the future of every sentient being in the galaxy. The Custodians had tried to shape the galaxy in their image, but humanity had the power to create a new path, one that was truly its own. As the Council deliberated, Earth's leaders came to a unified decision. They would not bow to the Custodians. Instead, they would use the weapon, but only on their terms. The Federation would take control of the weapon's activation and unlock its secrets. But they would not do it alone. They would reach out to the galaxy, to the civilizations that had watched Earth with skepticism, and offer them a chance to join in this new era of cooperation. It was a bold plan, one that risked everything. But Commander Thaler knew it was the only way. If Earth were to truly ascend, it could not do so in isolation. It needed the galaxy's trust. It needed the galaxy to see that humanity was not just a race to be feared, it was a race with a purpose, with the power to unite the galaxy and shape its future. In the days that followed, the Federation initiated a series of broadcasts to the galaxy. They announced their discovery of the weapon's true purpose and revealed that humanity had learned to harness its power. They extended an invitation to all races, offering peace, cooperation, and the opportunity to join in the next great leap of evolution. The Custodians, enraged by humanity's defiance, began to make their move. They sent emissaries to Earth, demanding that humanity submit to their authority and relinquish control of the weapon. But Earth's leaders stood firm. They would not be intimidated. They had the weapon, and they would use it to forge their own path. The Custodians' threats escalated. Their fleets moved closer to Earth's orbit, and skirmishes broke out between the Federation and Custodian ships. The galaxy watched as Earth stood its ground, refusing to bow to the ancient race that had believed it could control them. But the true power of the weapon was still a mystery. The Federation knew that activating it would require humanity to make a choice, not just a political decision, but a spiritual one. They had to prove themselves worthy of the weapon's power, and that meant transcending their flaws, their divisions, and their past. They had to become a united force, not only for themselves but for the galaxy as a whole. In the final moments, when the Custodians launched their full-scale assault on Earth, humanity made its stand. The weapon's core pulsed with energy, and for the first time, the galaxy felt the true power of Earth's potential. As the Custodians' ships closed in, the weapon unleashed a burst of energy so powerful that it rippled through space itself, altering the very fabric of reality. Time seemed to slow, space twisted and folded, and for a moment, the Custodians' fleets were frozen in place. It was not an attack, it was a demonstration of what Earth was capable of. The Custodians, seeing the power that humanity now wielded, paused. They had underestimated Earth's potential. And in that moment, the galaxy realized that humanity was not just a race to be controlled, it was the key to the future. The battle ended not in destruction, but in transformation. The Custodians, recognizing humanity's strength, withdrew. They understood that the galaxy could no longer be ruled by a single race. The weapon was no longer a tool for domination, it was a symbol of unity, of the new path humanity had chosen. The galaxy had learned what humanity was capable of. And with the weapon in their hands, Earth's people set forth on a new journey, not as pawns in a cosmic game, but as the architects of their own future. The time had come, and Earth had risen to meet it.